Today is October 1st, 2017. And today is the second episode of the Clavier's Piano Explorer Show. Remember it from 3 weeks ago? Okay, and today I'm going to present you the composer of the month. The composer of the month is, drumroll please, is Franz Joseph Haydn. Hooray! Dun, 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 dun. Now, let's get started. Franz Joseph Haydn, born in 1732, died in 1809. Haydn is one of the most important composers ever. He lived in Austria during the classical period and is often called the father of the symphony because he wrote over 100 symphonies. Can you believe it? His other nickname is the father of the string quartet because he wrote over 80 of them. Probably impossible, but he did it. Franz Joseph Haydn was born in the small town of Rohra, Austria in 1732. His father made wagon wheels and the family was very poor. Haydn's parents both enjoyed and appreciated music, but unlike Jan's Bach's family, they were not trained musicians. His father was a self-taught harp player, and he would often sing folk songs with his young son. Haydn's parents began to notice their son had a talent for music from an early age, but they knew he would not be able to get a good musical education in their small town. At age 6, Haydn's parents sent him from home to study music with a relative who was a schoolmaster and choir master in a nearby town. Haydn would never see his parents again. This was a difficult time for Haydn because he knew his new school was very strict and he often did not have enough food to eat. He was also mocked by the other boys for not being able to afford nicer clothing. Very mean, right? Despite these struggles, Haydn had begun his musical training and was learning a lot, including how to read and write music, and how to sing and play many instruments. Haydn sang very well, and a year later, he was asked to join the choir at this important St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. St. Stephen's Cathedral was born in the 1300s. Supposedly, Beethoven realized he was completely deaf when he saw birds flying out of its bell tower, but he could not hear the bells that were scaring them away. And this is St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. Very beautiful, right? During the classical period, Vienna was an important center of music, and Haydn was able to hear great performances by some of the best musicians of the time. Later, his young brother Michael came to St. Stephen's, and he also became a musician and a composer. As a member of the choir, Haydn studied singing, harpsichord, and violin. He sang in the choir until he was 17 years old, when his voice changed and became too deep to hit the high notes in the parts he sang. Supposedly around this time, he performed a mean prank and cut off the pigtail of another person in the choir. Very weird. This made the choir director very angry and gave him the excuse he was looking for to send Haydn away. When Haydn left, he had no money and only 3 old shirts and 1 coat. He starved until he found a place to stay with another musician. Life was not easy for musicians during the classical period. Haydn was not a superstar performer like Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and for a number of years, he made a poor living playing, teaching, and composing. One of the best jobs for a musician in Haydn's times was to be a court musician for a prince or other noble person. After one of the Haydn's early compositions became popular, a noblewoman named Countess Thun asked him to become her singing and keyboard instructor. Soon after that, a baron and a count asked Haydn to work for them. When Haydn was 29, his life began to greatly improve. Prince Esterhazy was a wealthy man who loved music. He hired Haydn to become his director of music. The Esterházys built a fabulous place called Esterháza in the Hungarian countryside in the 1700s. The Esterháza place, where Haydn worked for 30 years, was one of the finest in Europe. It has over 120 rooms and cost a fortune to build. While it was beautiful, it was also out in the countryside, and Haydn's musicians were sometimes unhappy about how far it was from the main Esterházy palace in Eisenstadt. Haydn wrote his famous Farewell Symphony as a hint to his employer that the musicians were overdue for a break. As the musicians played the work, one by one, they got up, blew out their music stand candle, and left. Here are the two pictures of the Esterháza Palace by the Esterházys. This is where Haydn lived and worked much of the time. He was in charge of an orchestra, an opera company. The palace had a 400-seat opera house, a marionette or puppet, theater, and a chapel. He also composed music, directed the orchestra, and was in charge of hiring and supervising the other musicians who worked there. The Esterházys treated Haydn very well, providing him with a generous salary and many other benefits, such as a maid, coachman, and a carriage and horses. He could also spend time hunting and fishing, which were his favorite hobbies. Haydn was happy working for the Esterházys. However, while they employed him, he could not publish his music because his compositions belonged to the prince. This was common back then. During his later years, he negotiated a new contract that allowed him to publish his music, which was enormously popular across Europe. When Prince Esterházy died, his son was not as interested in music and fired many of the musicians. Haydn decided to stop working for the family after 30 years of service. Later in his life, Haydn made two important trips to London, England. Haydn had become well known as a composer and was famous all over Europe. While he was in London, he gave a series of concerts and wrote some of his best music, including 12 symphonies. These symphonies are sometimes referred to as his London symphonies. The King of England wanted Haydn to stay in London, but Haydn decided to return to Vienna. His final home in Vienna is now a Haydn museum. Haydn's music: over 100 symphonies, 84 string quartets, 53 piano sonatas, 25 concertos, 12 masses, and finally, last but not least, 10 oratorios. Haydn wrote over 750 works, even more than Mozart. They were mostly lively pieces with delightful melodies and rich harmonies. I thought the melody was the most important part of music and the hardest to compose. And now, let's talk about the music of Haydn's time. Franz Joseph Haydn lived during a time that is referred to as the classical period of music. This is different than when people call serious artistic works classical music. The classical period came after the Baroque period, when J.S. Bach lived. And before the Romantic period, it was roughly from around 1750 to 1820. These dates are only approximate because styles do not change overnight. Classical composers tried to create art that had simple, elegant, and balanced form and structure. The following are some changes from Baroque styles that are found in classical music. Melodies. These were usually simpler and often shorter than in the Baroque period. Composers often wrote question and answer phrases. Texture. This became lighter and clearer. The melody was usually accompanied chords, while Baroque composers often wrote multiple melodies that were played at the same time, which is really hard. Ornaments. To keep the melody beautiful, composers used fewer ornaments than during the Baroque period. They still used trills, but not as often, and the ornaments sounded much later than the Baroque period, like J.S. Bach's music. Markings. Composers focused more on phrasing, articulation, and dynamics markings to express contrast and emotions. They wrote all those details in the music instead of leaving it up to the player, so that performers had very clear instructions on how to play each passage. Now let's talk about Haydn's music. What was Haydn like? Haydn was apparently a nice, hard-working man. He was respected by the musicians he supervised and had a good sense of humor. Haydn's cheerful nature shows up in his music. Most of his music is happy and easy to listen to, and sometimes he included musical jokes in his pieces. In his very famous Surprise Symphony, dun 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 dun. The music begins very quietly and simply. Then Haydn wrote an expected loud chord to wake up those in the audience who might have fallen asleep. Boom! A self-taught composer, Haydn studied pieces of music carefully so that he could learn music theory and composition. He was not taught either when he was a choir boy, so he had to learn these things on his own, which was a hard thing to do. Haydn said he learned a lot from studying the music of C.P. Bach, who was the son of the great composer J.S. Bach. Now, let's talk about October birthdays. In October 1st, it is Vladimir Horowitz's birthday. Born in 1903, died in 1989. A Russian and American pianist. On October 9th, it is Camille Saint-Saëns's birthday. Born in 1835, died in 1921. A French composer. On October 10th, it is Giuseppe Verdi's birthday. Born in 1813, died in 1901. Italian opera composer. On October 12th, it is Ralph Vaughan Williams' birthday. Born in 1872, died in 1958. An English composer. On October 14th, it is Gary Graffman's birthday. Born in 1928, he is still living. An American pianist. October 20th, it is Charaev's birthday. Born in 1874, died in 1954. Innovative American composer. On October 21st, it is Sir George Solti's birthday. Born in 1912, died in 1997. One of the greatest 20th century conductors. On October 22nd, it is Franz Liszt's birthday. Born in 1811, died in 1886. He is a Hungarian composer and pianist. On October 25th, it is Johann Strauss's II's birthday. Born in 1825, died in 1899. Austrian composer, sometimes referred to the Waltz King. On October 26th, it is Domenico Scarlatti's birthday. Born in 1685, died in 1757. Italian composer and harpsichord virtuoso, son of Alessandro Scarlatti, and was born in the same year as J.S. Bach and George Friedrich Handel. And last but not least, October 27th is Niccolo Paganini's birthday. Born in 1782, died in 1840. Italian violinist and composer. After we finish our episode, it's time for jokes! Question: what was the mummy's favorite music? A. Rap. W-R-A-P. Now, time for the second joke and our last. What is the vampire's least favorite music? The answer is... You are my sunshine, you are my sunshine. Okay, enough of that. Alright, and that is all for our episode. Goodbye!